This is the Coach's Wife Life podcast. I'm Kristen Eargle, your host, a former TV sports reporter and fellow college football coach's wife. I'll go one-on-one with the strong women who are the backbone of college athletics and athletics of all levels. And now, Coach's Wife Life.
This podcast is brought to you by Ruler of Hope. Ruler of Hope is a nonprofit that supports medically fragile children. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can use Venmo at Ruler-Hope or online at rulerofhope.org.
Hey there, I'm Kristen Eargle, and we have an exciting podcast ahead. But first, I want to talk about something we all know way too much about: moving. Just the thought of that can bring an unsettling emotion. Well, I found a team that can take that load off your plate. It's D1 Relocation. This group can do it all. They can organize your move, coordinate with a moving company, and a trusted real estate agent. They can actually vet key household partners such as schools, insurance agents, physicians in the area. They can even help set up your Wi-Fi and water. It's incredible. So I've come to know this team, which is actually founded by a coach's wife. I think you should check it out, whether you're looking to move now or in the future. It's d1relocation.com. Now on to our awesome podcast. Well, I am so excited to have Arrion McLean on the podcast. She is the wife of Mikhail McLean, Kentucky's assistant men's basketball coach. Thank you for being a part of us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Okay, you are at one of the premier basketball schools in the country. So it has to be a nerve-wracking experience to be a part of game day. Describe yourself in 3 words on game day.
Just trying to survive, or just survival. I think that's 4 words, but yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Everyone's very welcoming, right? Very sweet. We would not have thought it would have been this, easy to transition, but I think a lot of it has to do with the head coach's wife, Leanne Pope. She is an angel. It's internally, and I have 3 young children, so it's crazy game day anyway. So just getting into the stadium, getting to where we need to go, I'm just surviving. Just surviving it. There we go. 3 words. Just surviving it.
I love it. We'll use that. Okay. And what about your husband on game day? Is he one of these that kind of gets amped up, or is he real chill? What's he like?
Oh, he is all jacked up. And those 3 words, all jacked up. Like, very excited. He is the energy guy. He's always been the energy guy.
I love it. Okay. Now, he is at Kentucky. I mean, just walk us through what that was like to hear that you're getting to go coach at Kentucky.
It's honestly surreal. I've just kind of telling you before, but we were joking whenever Scott Drew was, in the process. You were like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if, he would like hire you as to like maybe even a grad assistant? Would you take that just to be at that university, right? And then when Coach Pope got the job and he hired Alvin Brooks III to be his associate head coach, my husband has a relationship with him, and that's how he got his foot in the door. And when he got the phone call, I think it was a text first, actually. And then they had a conversation. We were like, this isn't real. Like, this is not real life. Like, it would be great, go through the interview process, do all of the things, but like not getting like our hopes up or, so if it doesn't happen, it's not a big deal. Like, just having the interview was like huge. And then that night we were on the couch that night. And when it was a conversation, like the phone call, he hung the phone up and we just kind of like looked at each other. Our kids were asleep. And we like silently like celebrated like we won the Super Bowl or something like that. It was so exciting. The interview process was great. And then when it was final, I was at work and he calls me and he says, I got the job. And I screamed. Everybody in my office heard. They were like, what's going on?
That's incredible. What a memory and what a neat thing to build on there. Obviously, this is year 1 for you guys there. He's been at Lamar before now. He's played himself, obviously at Houston. I want to hear about how you guys met. But why do you think he's able to coach at Kentucky? Why has his formula worked?
Yeah, Mikhail is probably one of the most connected people, I guess is the best way to put it. He never met a stranger. And that goes back to his mom. His mama was the sweetest woman, never met a stranger, loved everybody, always made you feel like the most important person when you're talking to him. So he's just made really good relationships, and he really enjoys the sport, right? But the biggest thing I think with all of that included would probably be his mentorship. Like, he's had some really great people to instill in him teamwork. And that's kind of probably the reason we got here, is because he has always been about what can I do for the team, not about how can I elevate myself? How can I get to this place? It's always been, well, what does the team need? How can I be of assistance in that way, no matter what that looks like? And he's always willing to help other people, other coaches, bring information to people who might be in a high school role that want to go to college, or students that are learning, like grad assistants or managers. He's always wanting to help make people better as individuals, but also as a team. So I think that's the biggest reason.
I love that. Okay, let's hear about you guys. How did you meet? Where did you grow up? Give us all the fun details.
Yeah. So we met at the University of Houston in statistics class, actually. Weird story. I danced at the University of Houston. Grew up in Houston, decided to go to University of Houston, met in statistics class. I was a dancer for the University of Houston. He played basketball, but the joke is I didn't even know he was on the team. If you have any experience with like game day production or being a part of game day in any way, shape, or form, you could probably kind of see how that would be for me. I wasn't worried about who was on the court, right? I was like, okay, at this minute mark, we're doing this dance and, this promotion. So I had no idea. I talked to him in statistics. He sat in front of me and he never stood up. He's 6'7". So if I would have seen him stand up, I probably would have known. He always wore Houston basketball gear. I just never paid attention to it. So we were friends in class, and then I needed a tutor. I'm terrible at math. So
Same.
So you get it.
Oh yeah. Number one, pause you there. Statistics, I couldn't even get into that class, but go ahead. I mean,
I took it twice. Let's just say that. I asked for help a little too late. I think it was right before the final, and I was like, hey, I really need some help. Like, he's really good at math, really good at numbers, just comes to him easy. For me, I could write you a paper. I could do all of those types of things. I could stand in front of a class and talk. Now, numbers, not my thing at all. So he tutored me. We did like an all-nighter at the library, and that was kind of when our relationship started. We were friends at first, just easy to talk to. I didn't really want to date a basketball player. When I first got to the school, being a dancer, you're just exposed to athletes all the time. And I just was like, I don't really think that's for me. And he was just a different guy. And so we eventually started dating the next year, and it kind of was history from there. So yeah.
Okay. And so when did you get married? Tell me, kids, all the good stuff.
Yeah. So we dated all through college. He thought he was going to play. Like, that was kind of his plan. He is actually from the Bahamas. So he's not originally from Texas, America. He came when he was 13 or 14 to play basketball at a private high school, and then went to the University of Houston, where he was, planning to probably play overseas. He was more of a coach in my eyes than a player. He was always trying to, he was the captain of the team, but always the one trying to help make people be in the right place and do the right things. And I just never saw him playing. So I was like, you better figure out what you're going to do with your life. Cause I didn't see that. I didn't tell him that. But he ended up just having a lot of injuries, wasn't able to continue playing. So his head coach at the time, who was Coach Sampson, who's still at Houston now, gave him the opportunity and said, hey, do you want to try coaching? And he said, okay, I don't think I'm going to like it, but sure, it'll give me time to figure out what I'm going to do. That at the end of his first year, maybe it was before he became a grad assistant, is when he proposed. He got his master's degree. So he got 2 degrees in 4 years. And the day he graduated from his master's, His mom and his cousin were in town, and he took me to the Chase Tower downtown in Houston and proposed there. And I worked in sports at that time too. I was the assistant athletic director. I wanted to be like the general manager of a sports team. And then when he decided, yeah, I think I'm going to coach, it's like, well, I want kids. I want this. Like, I make like next to nothing, and I work every single day, every minute of my life. So I was like, let's not do that. And I'll, you go coach, do whatever, not knowing what that meant, right? Like, I had no idea what I was getting into. I knew that he practiced, so he probably wouldn't have a whole lot of days off, but I had no idea what I was actually getting into when I said, yeah, go do that. I'll go find another career. And so, yeah, I got into recruitment, and I was a teacher for a little bit. But then we ended up having our first son. So we got married in 2017, had our first son in 2018. And then we had another little boy in 2020. And then our third little boy came in 2022. So we had currently a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
And you're not tired at all.
Not at all.
No,
I have loads of energy.
Yeah. You're like, what do I do all the time? I'm just so bored. Exhausting work being a young mom. I mean, that is like the period of time where they need every ounce, and they're very chatty, aren't they?
My oldest, I just had parent-teacher conferences with his teacher, and he loves learning. He is great at that, but just a chatterbox. And I told her when he started, I was like, hey, like, he's a sweet kid. He's going to want to please you, but he's going to talk. And we joked about it. She was just like, sometimes I just have to tell him politely, hey, I love what you want to say, but it's other people's turn.
Yes. So many questions I have here, especially about you've been with the athletic side, watching and then being a part of it, and now being a coach's wife and going, hey, there's a lot to this. And, not every day you're getting the job at Kentucky. There are tough moments in this, and probably especially, before you get to that part, maybe coaching at Lamar. What are those things that stand out to you as maybe some of the toughest adversity you have been through, either on or off the court? And what did you rely on to get through those moments?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of people outside of the sport think it's just glamour and, oh, you lost a game, big deal. But like, it is a big deal to lose, or to, just have things outside of basketball happen in life, right? When we were at Lamar, it was the best opportunity for Mikhail, but it was probably the most difficult time as a family. When we moved there, my youngest was 6 months and my oldest was 2. I think he was 2. Yes. So I had gotten a really good job working from home. We were comfortable for about a year and a half, but with the new job, when you take on a new team, it requires a lot more, because you're having to recruit a lot more than average, because you've got to fill a roster immediately, right? Like, you're not like, you're always recruiting as a coach, but when you're trying to bring in a whole new team and a whole new coaching staff, because he was the first hire for the head coach. And so he worked hand in hand with the head coach, building everything up, helping the head coach make decisions on coaching hires and players, and going and visiting these people in their homes, however many hours of drive, so trying to get them to come, and players that you wanted to stay, going the extra mile to make sure that they felt comfortable with the new coaching staff, and, all the things that come with that. So he worked a lot, and I worked also and had young kids, and, that was difficult in one aspect because we were busy, right? And then about a year and a half into that job, I was laid off of my job. My salary carried our family for up until that point. As a coach, you make good money when you get to a certain point, but before then, you're not making a lot, in hopes that your hard work will pay off, which we were obviously lucky to gotten this opportunity for his hard work to pay off. But it was hard after losing my job, and we had 2 young kids, and you buy a house thinking and do these things thinking you have this much money, and then you lose it. That was really difficult. It was hard for me to find a job. I found a job eventually, and then ironically got laid off of that job again. So that was difficult. And then right before that, Mikhail's mom passed away. So we dealt with that. And then that following year, his father passed away. And then a couple months later, his grandmother passed away. So all of his core people in his family, they passed away. And I think the biggest blessing in that for him was he hadn't lived with them for years, right? So it was almost like he was able to compartmentalize dealing with the grief, but then the job. And then he luckily had great bosses that allowed him to go back home. So he was home, for a month at a time, just dealing with everything. Because in the Bahamas, it's not like America where, there's plenty of funeral homes. If you need to, expedite it or whatever, you can do that. So it just took a lot longer. So again, being a single parent during that time, and then going through the loss and grief and the financial problems that we had, it was just really, really hard. And then honestly, what was our saving grace was our faith. We're a family of faith. We love and rely on our Savior, Jesus Christ, to get us through everything. And by the grace of God, he somehow provided us to not be able to lose our house. We kept our house through all of that. Our kids were still able to stay in the school that they were in. I had great support with some of the ladies at the school and some of the workers there. They just helped me a lot, and a lot of tears, a lot of stressful nights. But we grew individually in our faith, but also as a couple. So we had always put God in the forefront of our marriage, but we had to rely on him a lot more than we thought we would have. So that's really honestly what helped us get through it. We had given a lot. We always give a lot to our program, right? And it's not just my husband. I personally feel compelled just because, I told you I like sports. And so I was kind of always just around, kind of like to be an aunt to those guys. Because when Mikhail first started, I wasn't much older than any of the players, so just trying to develop the relationship with these guys and help support them, whatever that looks like, whether that's an encouraging note or, just physically being there at all of the games, cheering them on, that helped us too. And my husband actually that year, in our bathroom, he wrote down contract year, and in all areas of life. So supporting my emotional, physical growth, our boys, the players, former players that he had, his staff, his coach, anybody that was in his life, he had specific goals where he was going to pour back into them, because that's really all we could do at that point, right? It was just do our very best in life to help, ignore the fact that we're going through a very difficult time at home. And a lot of people had probably no idea that we were struggling as much as we were, but that's where we found joy, and that's how we got through it. And in my eyes, it paid off more than I would have thought it would have. So we're just really blessed and thankful for that.
What a powerful story. That's phenomenal. And in those moments you're praying and you're going, God, how is this your best for us? Right. And you're praying and you're losing, and the finances are getting tighter and tighter. And you're talking about maybe losing a house. That's significant. And you're going, God, I know you can provide, but I'm not seeing it yet. I mean, what was there a verse that you dug in on, or just being consistent in your prayer to go, I will not let this overcome me. I'm going to choose joy in this moment.
Yeah. I can't remember. I think it's Proverbs. But though I walk through the valley and shadow of death, basically just relying on God to get through it. These dark times are going to try and push me in the opposite direction, right? And as long as I keep my eyes focused on our goal and on God, we'll be fine. And that's exactly what happened. That dark valley was extremely dark, and I could see the light, but I felt like I could just never reach it. So, yeah.
And now that you're at Kentucky, you think, what a beautiful story. Kind of hey, he had it all along. It probably makes you even more grateful and even more aware of people around you that you don't realize might be going through something. I think that's I talk about all the time on the podcast. We have a daughter, she has special needs and all that. And you think that other people might not be going through them. You don't realize that there's a lot that you can't see that people are battling, walking through adversity. I feel like it makes me have compassion, even more compassion for others, especially financially.
I agree. I think you just see people going through life, and especially social media makes that even more difficult to actually see the real person behind it. You see people doing all of these, whether it's, traveling or being involved in this or that and just looking like they're happy. And in reality, they could be going through something completely unimaginable. And you would have no idea. And that's kind of how I like to look at things. In all elements. I've had great relationships and some that just didn't work out and I was way better off without, but I never put any blame on anybody else just because I knew I was going through a hard time, right? And we all go through difficult times at one point or another, and just realizing, like you said, just having compassion. Somebody had a bad day, like somebody screamed at you or cut you off or cussed you out or whatever the word, whatever it is. And I'm not saying that you don't have the right to have feelings about it, but being compassionate and understanding, like, hey, you don't know what they're going through. And yeah, they probably didn't warrant whatever the action was, but at least, you can have empathy for them as a person.
You mentioned something else that you talked about, like you're pouring in. That's what you did during that time, pouring into the other players, pouring into your community. What are some of those things that you think that you talked about the success of your husband? He made a contract for everyone around him. What are some of the things that you're doing behind the scenes that are playing a part into some of the success that you're having right now?
Yeah, not a lot of people really think about what it looks like from our perspective, right? As the coach's wife, what does that even look like? You just, watch the kids and go to games. That sounds fun, right? But it's a lot more than that. You're like I already mentioned, you're single parenting, but also trying to co-parent with someone who's not always physically there. So we make time for our relationship. We make time for him to have relationships with our kids. And then we also make time for others, if that makes sense. So what we do personally to help our relationship is on game day, because we don't always get to do date night, right? And if we do a date night, it might be like after the kids go to sleep and we're having dinner together without kids, right?
Yeah.
In our
it's
house.
at home.
Exactly. Especially like, when we were going through our really difficult financial troubles, just we couldn't go to dinner. We couldn't go to a movie. So we would my husband loves to cook. And so he would cook us a really nice dinner, which might be better than going to a restaurant sometimes anyways.
Yeah.
But on game day, we always do either coffee or breakfast together. So I would go drop the kids off and he would go get to the office, get settled, and then we would meet for coffee. In Beaumont, there weren't a whole lot of breakfast options, so we always went to Waffle House. So they kind of knew us there, and it was just kind of like our time to be a husband and wife, and not a mom, not a coach, not a whatever. So we did that for our relationship, for our kids. Whenever he's able to be there, I let him be a father and physically be there with the kids, right? Like it's really hard for me though, because I'm like, you're here, never. I have a system. And when you come in, it could just mess everything up, right? And I had to let go of a lot of that control and be like, you go ahead and you go do bath. Or if you want to take them outside before the sun is completely gone, hey, go ahead. Even if it's, kind of makes a little more turmoil. But the time that he gets with the kids is the most important, right? So I would sacrifice my sanity sometimes or organization and my need for control to allow him to be a present father, and bringing the kids up to the school whenever I could so that he could see them. But also I personally would organize hosting our players. We had them over for dinner all the time. We also, I did these little baskets for my players, and encouraging notes and texting them or messaging them on Instagram to encourage them. Because I always thought, if my child were away at college, what would I want for my kid, right? And I don't want to be their mom. That's not what I'm there for. I'm not there to be a mentor to them in any other way than whatever they need, right? Like if they need someone to just encourage them or screaming on the sidelines, like I'll do that for them. And I would ask them individually, like, what does that look like for you? how can I support you? And obviously not every player is going to give you an answer. If you know a college boy, you know that
I
you
don't know. but some of them will tell you,
Yeah. And then the more I got to know them, have them at my house, we would have them over to watch like the NBA playoffs and all of that stuff after the season was fully over. And then during the season, if we had a Sunday free, or, even if it was a weekday, we just have them over for a quick meal, just giving them the opportunity to know that they had a home to go to. And then sometimes I would have conversations with parents during the recruitment process to just let them know, hey, like, I'm here, right? If you need me, I'm here. I understand that you're entrusting your son here with us, and I'm here to help. Like, if that's just making breakfast or calling him or whatever, that's kind of just me. And I like I said, I don't think that looks the same for everybody. I don't think that is the only recipe for success, but that's kind of how our family does it and what works for us.
Wow. The whole family is making an impact there. I love that. That's beautiful. And it's hard work on your part too, because that's behind the scenes work when you already have the kids going on and doing 99% of that a lot of the time. And then, cooking and being so intentional. I think it's being intentional. And I think that's what you're describing is being intentional. But it's worth it though, when you see them, even if it's not like the leading scorer, right? If it's somebody that you can tell you're having a positive influence on them. It's incredible. So looking at decisions throughout career, walk me through how you guys make big career decisions. And then, second part to that question would be making a big decision and then not second guessing yourself. And I don't know if you've encountered that before at all. But how do you guys navigate that?
Yeah. Our time at Lamar, because that was the first time he was an assistant coach. At Houston, he was the assistant player development coach. So he helped, but it was in a completely different capacity, right? And so during his time at Lamar, the first year was very difficult. We won like nothing. Going from a Final Four to 2 games, and they weren't even conference games that we won. So it was a stark difference in what we were experiencing. So we were just like, okay, how can we rebuild? What can we do? And so that next year we did so much better. He did get a couple of job, options or opportunities, people calling him. And they made more money, but we've never chased money. It was more of, what is the best to help your career? Because I've given up my career. I'm, doing what I can to support his career. So all of our decisions were what is going to better his career in the long term, not the short term. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with chasing money, because money helps you survive. Money does a lot of things for you, So I don't want to put anyone down who does chase money. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not how we operate. And so we would look at what would the life be for our family, right? Would I be able to find a job? Would it be, if those things weren't going to be as easy, is this a career? Is this a career step that would help project your future? And if it didn't make sense, in the sense of you could see that he was going to be able to be there to make a lasting impact for the program, that would, directly show that he was able to help that, then we wouldn't make that decision to go there. And we did have to talk about those this past year, actually, before he took the Kentucky job. Ironically, he did get quite a few calls, more than he had gotten before, and they were really good options. We sat at the dinner table and we're like, okay, just laid the pros and the cons out, and figured out what would make sense. And I think honestly it was our faith, because there were a couple of them that did make sense. And for some reason he was just like, I just don't think this is the right opportunity for our family. And so I was like, as long as you're okay, like if nothing else comes after this and you're okay with being here for another year and potentially not getting another call, because the last year we were at Lamar, we had a great year, the best winning season that they've had. I can't remember in how long, but a while. And so it was a big impact on the program, a big impact for the players, the coaches. If there was any time to accept a better opportunity, it would have been then. And so he he just felt like it wasn't right. And we pray about it, we talk about it, we pray about it, and then we make the decision. And there were two of them that I was like, I'm going to trust you, but it really did make sense. And so the months after that, it was just like, was that the right decision? Right. I did get a job right before we moved. Like, I think it was in April. And so we were kind of going back up to where we were. I did take a huge pay cut, but at least it was a job. Right. So we were surviving, but it was still difficult. And so it was like, did you make the right decision here? Like, were we crazy to have turned down this opportunity? And then the thing about my husband is, if he turned down any opportunity, he always would suggest someone else and help them in that process. So in that process, he was able to help. I can't remember if it was one or two other guys that he had worked with previously get jobs with those programs. So it wasn't a total loss, but it was like, is this the right thing to do?
We're trying to follow you, God, and we feel like this has been up on our heart. And then kind of walking in faith here. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of our listeners can identify with that. Yeah, because this job came late. Like, it did. We didn't get the call about this until May, which we figured at that point, okay, we're going to be at Lamar again. What does that look like for our family? How do we just assumed that was what it was. And then when we got the call, we were like, oh, okay, God, this is what we were waiting for.
Incredible. What do you think would surprise people to know about this life? Or maybe what surprised you to know? Okay, go ahead, be a coach. And then, this is a little more difficult, maybe even more impact than you expected to make. But there are some things about it. What do you think surprises you or would surprise others?
I mean, coming from a sports background, I knew the time commitment would have been a good bit. I didn't know how much you could talk about a sport, if it makes sense. You practice, you do this, you do that, and then there's still so much work that they do after, like I was talking with a wife about this the other day. Just they come home and he's a great dad when he's there, and then that laptop comes out and it's work. Like even the day of the game, I always we'd come home, do our debriefing, because I'm not like a basketball connoisseur, but I enjoy the game and I understand having this perspective. I've understood. So we like have our little commentary that we talk about. He'll ask me what are things that I noticed, and we'll kind of talk through that. And then he gets on his laptop. And the other day I asked him, I was like, okay, your scout is done. What are you doing exactly? And so just he specifically, he always wants to do better. So there's things that he's not even being asked to do that he'll do so that he can learn how to do it. And in the event that somebody asks him to do it, he can do it. And so I'm just like, I had no idea that there was so much involved outside of like, coaching the players and being a mentor to them and, being available to them and all of this, but like the physical, like breaking down. I didn't know you could break down film as much as it can be broken down to. I didn't.
That was like, wow.
Yeah. Like that was the most surprising thing for sure.
And the funny thing is the more technology we have, the more we are using it in ways we never did before. So I don't know if it's making it more complicated or I don't know. Like,
yeah, like you can just do too
you can
much,
keep
like,
breaking it down.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess it's good because it makes players better. Like the type of technology that they have at Kentucky is something I've never seen in my life, that they can just determine how a player operates pretty much, just how can they make them better. And I just, like you said, technology has made it to where they can really know every little detail, which takes more time.
It is. Yeah. So you talked about on recruiting visits, you're talking with the moms. How involved are you in recruiting?
Not hardly at all. Like, I'll have a conversation with them to introduce myself, introduce my kids, and literally just say, hey, like when I'm here, let me know, like Mikhail will give you my phone number, or, if you see me on Instagram, you can send me a message, whatever. I'm not really involved at all. Like I ask questions just because I'm curious as to, who the guys are and my husband will talk to me about him and be like, oh, you're really going to like this kid because he's really into this. And, you know, you can talk to him about that. So it's very minimal, I think. But I usually like to have, if that is possible, because it's not always possible.
Yeah.
But.
Okay. So how do you maintain balance in all of this? What is your go-to, day in a life?
Day in a life. So more recently, and I think my husband realized that he needed to change the way he did things in order for me to have my sanity. But my mornings are for me. He wakes up, he's an early riser. He will wake up before the sun, before the rooster, so that he used to work out in the mornings and now he does it at work. But he'd wake up, get stuff together. Like I said, he likes to cook. So he takes pride in getting the breakfast together for the kids, packing their lunches, getting them dressed. And that's like my quiet time, my me time, because after that, I don't really get anything to myself.
Yeah.
So then I bring the kids to school. And before I was working, so I would come home and work and then, do all the things. But today, I have been looking for a job. I've been managing the home, which I thought, okay, I don't have a job right now. I'll have a lot of free time. Oh no, that is not the case. There's so much to be done in the house. And I wonder how I got it all done before. I just don't understand how that's possible. And so then I go pick the kids up. I usually, depending on what time I'm able to get them, because my oldest, he's in kindergarten, so set pickup time. But for my younger two, they're at a preschool, and so I can kind of pick them up whenever. And my middle child has specifically suggested that I don't pick him up until he can go to playground time in the afternoon. And so I'm like, okay, that's less energy I have to get out of you in the day. And so, I'll go pick them up. Come home, we'll do dinner, and then my husband will come home depending if, he's out of town or not. And we use that last little bit before they go to bed as family time. We kind of talk about our days. They kind of, are learning how to, express themselves. And so we have that time. And then we have a pretty strict bedtime routine where it's like bath time, books, brush their teeth, read a book together as a family. And then we pray. And so that's kind of how we end our days.
Oh, that's awesome. And so he's home a lot of time for supper outside of traveling and game nights, because you have a ton of games and you have midweek games, not just football where you're on Saturday. Outside of that, is he able to come home for supper or it just depends?
He can, but like I said, he is one of those guys that wants to work and figure things out. So it's kind of a coin toss, but he usually makes it home before they go to bed at least. So if we don't do dinner, he'll be there to, tuck them in. And then if we don't do dinner, then that's when he'll, we'll have how was your day? And then he'll kind of tell them about his day and vice versa. And that's kind of like our little debriefing. But like I said, if we don't do dinner, at least he sees them before bedtime most times.
Let's see. What would you say are some of the most rewarding aspects to you about being a coach's wife?
Most rewarding, just the relationships and the lives that we're able to change. There's one player in particular that he was my husband's first player he saw from freshman to senior. And we didn't think he was going to continue playing basketball. It was just a rough, he just had a lot of things going on outside of basketball and, just not always performing the best that he wanted. And my husband spent a lot of hours just, trying to help him see the best in himself. And now he plays in the G League, and just being able to see him do as well as he's doing back when we're like, oh, he might not make it, we hope he does. But, just seeing how well some of these guys do and seeing some of them become fathers and, just watching them do good in their lives. And just my oldest son is obsessed with the game. So getting to see them interact with my kids is also something that I would never take for granted, because it is a hard life. It's very difficult to maintain normalcy with this type of lifestyle, especially being at this program where basketball is it's like a level I couldn't even expect. But they still show interest in my kids, and they don't have to do that, right? But I think just the relationships that we have, it just comes natural. And just getting to see that interaction and see my kids look up to them as kind of like big brothers or big uncles or whatever you want to call them. It's just been the best thing that I never would have expected from this.
What blew you away? And you were at Houston, you guys were to Final Four. What blew you away, though, by being at Kentucky? Anything that was, this is one of those moments where you're like, oh my goodness.
I think the first time that I realized where we were, because my husband, he would go to practice, he would go to this, he would go to whatever events and stuff, and he would come home and be like, this is not a real place. And I'm like, just hearing him say it and hear the experiences that he had, I'm like, oh yeah, that's really cool. That's amazing, and it, but seeing it is different. And I don't know, you being a college basketball fan, you remember when they used to have Midnight Madness and it was like such a huge excitement thing. So obviously it's not Midnight Madness anymore, and most schools don't even do it anymore, but they, and I don't know if they did this, right before Calipari left or what, but they did something called Big Blue Madness, and the attendance, because the stadium is like NBA arena size, like it's massive. And seeing the amount of people that came out where they were not watching a basketball game, they were not watching anything except for the players being announced. Really, that's what it was. And the coaches. And the full production, just for that alone, the excitement, the cheering, the theatrics, I like, people kept asking me, how was it? What did you think? And it just seemed like a movie. It really just seems like a movie, because the energy that these fans put into their team, like Coach Pope says, that this is Kentucky's team, and it really feels like Kentucky's team. It feels like these fans would do any and everything to support and help in any way that they can as a fan. I've never seen, it literally a movie is the only way I could describe it.
Incredible. Love it. Okay, rapid fire. Are you ready?
Oh, okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Who is the most famous person in your phone?
Okay. I would say a lot of people might not even know him. His Elvin Hayes. He is a basketball legend. He's older, from Houston Rockets.
Nice. What's one item on your bucket list that's checked off and one left to check off?
Okay. Bucket list one, I did really want to have children. That was something I really wanted to do. Checked it off 3 times over. And something that I still want to do, I have always wanted to go to Australia. I kind of want to do the whole thing. I don't know why it's a random thing I've wanted to do since I was 13 years old.
There you go. Okay. Who are the last 3 people you have texted?
My husband, and I have a group chat, I'm in a wives Bible study. So does that count as more than one? I don't know. I'll give you another one though. One of the parents in one of my middle son's class, because they have 1 million birthdays in their class, and I've just been surviving trying to go to birthday parties.
A fun problem. Okay, funniest account you follow on Instagram. Do you have something you follow that cracks you up?
Yes, it's called F Jerry. It's they just post random funny videos, but it's the funniest thing I follow. Yeah.
What about your life impresses your kids?
Ooh, I think my husband's job. They think it's the coolest thing ever.
What would be your walk-up song?
That one, I have no idea.
What song did you enjoy dancing to?
Well, see, I feel like that was a whole lifetime ago. I've lived a lot of life since then. Back then, it might have been Bring 'Em Out, that Jay-Z song. I loved that song. I danced to it. Our players walked out to it. But now I'd probably say Life is Good by Forrest Frank.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's a good one. I like that. Okay, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you so much. It was such a great time talking to you and just getting to experience this. This was great.
This podcast is brought to you by Ruler of Hope. Ruler of Hope is a nonprofit that supports medically fragile children. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can use Venmo at Ruler-Hope or online at rulerofhope.org.
For a replay of this episode or previous episodes, visit coacheswifelife.org and follow us on social media at Coaches Wife Life.